Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. How would you manage if you were holed up during a long, bleak, cold winter, away from family and friends, with no access to supermarkets, or even just to get outside for a bit? Well, that's exactly what Rachael Robertson signed up for as an expedition leader at Davis Station in Antarctica. In 2005, she managed a team of 120 during summer and a smaller group of 18 during the frozen, perpetual dark of winter. She came to realise that for everyone to get along, the most important quality people required was respect. In her book, Respect Trumps Harmony, Why Being Liked is Overrated and Constructive Conflict Gets Results, Rachael identifies 3 principles at the core of her approach to leadership, which we'll hear about shortly. First, she explains to Chris Ashmore that what actually led her to Antarctica was accidental, if not comical.
What intrigued me was the Antarctic Division, the Australian Antarctic Division, recruits for qualities. So they recruit for resilience, empathy and integrity. You don't need to necessarily know anything technical about Antarctica. And I just thought that was a fantastic way to recruit, get the people who've got the qualities and attributes you need for that job and then teach them the technical. So I applied for the job with this fiendish plan of just getting to the interview stage where I could copy their questions and bring them back to my team. It was only after I applied I find out there is no interview. It's a week-long boot camp in the Central Highlands of Tasmania. So I end up on this boot camp with 13 men competing for a job I didn't particularly want. And then they rang and offered it to me. And I thought, you know what, I'd rather regret what I did than regret what I didn't do. So I ended up there quite by accident.
You didn't choose who your team members would be. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think surprises a lot of people, certainly surprised me, that you would imagine leading a year-long expedition that I would have some input into the team and the composition of the team. But because we're recruited at the same time, it's difficult for the leader to have any kind of input because we're recruited through the same period of time. So yeah, we're relying on other people to choose our team for us. And often what they look for in a person might be quite different to what we look for. So there will always be a station leader on that selection panel for the tradies and the scientists. But yeah, I just got what I was given, 17 random individuals and told, turn them into a team because your life depends on your teamwork. So make these guys into a team. And it was like, well, okay, we'll have a crack.
You're in an environment that's challenging, to say the least. What were the challenges you were expecting to face?
I was expecting Antarctica itself to be the biggest challenge because I thought it's minus 35 degrees, months of darkness, you can't come in and out. And I expected Antarctica would be difficult, and it was. But the way harder part, the much harder, more difficult part, was the interpersonal pressure of living with your colleagues 24 hours a day for a year and having very little privacy, and having to effectively be at work your whole life for a year. And particularly for me as the leader, that I went in knowing I would be watched because I'd been in leadership roles for 19 years and we watch the leader, and whatever the leader says has extra volume because you are the leader. And I knew that going in, but nothing could have prepared me for the 24-hour-a-day nature of it. So even having dinner or having breakfast on a Sunday morning where I sat for meals, all of that gets noticed. And it's really intense, and I had to learn how to protect myself a bit and put some boundaries around myself to try and make sure I had my own time and my own space.
Well, your recent book, Rachael, Respect Trumps Harmony, you say being liked is overrated and conflict gets results. What do you mean by that?
I worry about teams that focus on harmony at the expense of respect, and I think we need both. And that's why I chose the word trumps, which is quite an interesting word at the moment, but it's a very specific word, and it meant that you want respect and you want harmony, but when the two come together, if there's any kind of clash, you should always choose respect, because I feel when teams focus on harmony, a couple of things happen. Firstly, any bad behaviour, any bullying or harassment still goes on, just goes underground. Secondly, you can't innovate. You won't get any innovation because people don't want to offer a difference of opinion or a conflicting view or a different view because they don't want to rock the boat. And I think thirdly, people get hurt. So physically or mentally. If someone's doing something unsafe, people walk past, they turn a blind eye, but equally with mental health. So if the focus is, isn't it great here and everything's wonderful and we're all really happy and getting along and love each other, no one puts their hand up and says, actually, I'm not so great right now. And I think you're much better going for respect and having those robust conversations, but doing it respectfully and playing the idea or playing the ball, not the person.
Well, in your book, you outline 3 pillars to build respect in teams. And the first is the importance of direct conversations. And you say eliminating triangles. What do you mean by no triangles?
No triangles initially started for my own sanity. So you can imagine managing 17 people around the clock. They'd come up to me and they say, oh, Chris said this to me. And I'd say, well, do you want me to talk to him? Is that why you're telling me? And they said, no, I'm just letting you know. And I'm thinking, I said out loud one time, but if you don't talk to him and I don't talk to him, he's never going to know. And you and I will have this conversation next week. And then in my head, I'm like, wow, and I'm here for 52 weeks and there's 17 of you. I can't do this. So we implemented no triangles. It was pretty straightforward. We just got everyone together and we said, tough environment, really tough environment. How are we going to build trust in this team? Let's have direct conversations. Put your hand up if you agree. Yep, everyone's hand went up. It meant the very next time someone came to me and tried to engage me in that, oh, Chris said this to me, I could say, hang on, I saw you put your hand up and commit to no triangles. So why are you talking to me about it? Why aren't you talking to him about it? So it was a really simple, I don't speak to you about him or you don't speak to me about her. And it just built respect in the team. But importantly for me as the leader, it freed up my energy and my time to get on with more important stuff.
Well, perhaps that leads on to the second pillar that you outline, which is not allowing the trivial to become titanic. And here you write about the Bacon War. What was the Bacon War?
I would love to say that was a metaphor for something, but it wasn't. It legitimately started off as a bacon war. So the plumbers wanted the bacon soft and the diesel mechanics wanted it crispy. And now normally a chef cooks the bacon, but the chef has every Monday off, and so we take turns on a Monday. And the guys came and saw me and they said, look, we need to have a meeting to decide how to cook this bacon because we're cooking it the opposite way. And I got to the bottom of it. I did the whys, the root cause analysis of why. Got to the bottom of it, found out they felt disrespected. So it manifested in the bacon, but there'd been a falling out with this team over the use of a vehicle. And they thought the other team was deliberately doing it to annoy them or irritate them. And I'm like, wow, this is not about the bacon. It's about respect. And I started to identify all these little things that happen, like dirty coffee mugs left lying around or people always being late for meetings. And I'm thinking, wow, that's why they drive us crazy, because they're a symptom of a deeper issue. And the deeper issue is that lack of respect. So I was dynamite on these things to try and identify whether they were an issue around respect. And if they were, then we need to sort it and solve it. Because my 2 big concerns down there was someone exploding with anger or someone spiraling with depression, because I didn't feel like I had the tools or skills to deal with either of those scenarios. So I thought, right, how do I create a culture where we speak up as adults, we speak up, we deal with issues, we sort them out and we move on. And so the Bacon War is a really important part of our culture in terms of raising these issues and getting on with it.
Very reminiscent of workplaces across the country, these kinds of issues.
Oh, we've done research on it for the book. And the number one, it's different in different countries, but in Australia, our number one Bacon War was the dirty coffee mugs and the sign that says, your mother doesn't work here, put your dishes in the dishwasher. And people say, by the time they put that sign up, they could have just put the dishes in the dishwasher. And I said, well, it's not about the dishes. It's about respect. It's disrespectful. Oh, there's hundreds. In schools, commonly it's yard duty. I know in investment banking, I worked with a bank recently, it was people working at night trading with New York when New York's open, getting pizzas delivered for dinner and leaving the boxes lying around, and the corporate staff come in the morning, have to pick up these boxes. People who often share vehicles or share cars, it's someone who takes the car out and brings it back without petrol in it. Like, there's just hundreds of them. And now I understand why they drive us bonkers. It's because they're a symptom of that deeper issue, and that's why they drive us crazy.
Well, the third pillar is lead without a title. What do you mean by that?
That one happened. We actually had a plane crash while we were down there, and a bolt sheared off the landing gear of the plane, and it stranded 4 of my people 500 kilometres away. And on the 3rd day of the search and rescue, we were trying to work out how we'd get an aviation engineer out to fix this plane. The search and rescue team, so there's 6 of us on the team, we'd missed lunch, we'd missed dinner, and it was 10 o'clock at night. And I walked over to the kitchen. I said, come on, guys, we've got to eat. It's 10 o'clock and we've missed lunch and dinner. Let's just make a sandwich. And we walked in there and someone had plated up 6 dinners and put them aside with a little label on it with our names and a bit of Glad wrap. And when I found that person, I said, "Oh, that is amazing leadership." And she said, "Oh, I'm not the team leader. Luke is the team leader." And I said, "Well, no, that's a title. Leadership isn't a title. Leadership is seeing something that needs to be done and doing something about it. And you saw something needed to be done and you just did it." And it hit me right then that I needed to be really explicit about that, because a lot of my team hadn't done a lot of leadership training. And so I had to actually use those words, that I expect you to demonstrate leadership. If you see something that needs to be done, do something about it. If you've got a great idea, I want to hear it. Bring it. That's leadership. It's not a title, it's a behaviour. And so I had to use those words. And what it meant was the entire expedition team felt commitment and accountability for our results. Even though I was the leader and I was ultimately making the big decisions, everyone on my team felt empowered and felt accountable for being included and for offering ideas and for helping out. And if you see something needed to be done, do something about it. But yeah, that was fascinating.
Absolutely. How was the transition when you got back home from Antarctica?
Oh, Chris, I'm glad you asked that, because I thought it would be amazing. I was so excited about it and couldn't wait to get home after a year of lockdown. I couldn't wait to get home, and I was excited. But what really hit me was the overwhelm, was the suddenly after a year of lockdown, you're driving a car long distances. I remember being in the breakfast cereal aisle at Woolworths and being overwhelmed by the choice of breakfast cereals after a year of being told what we're going to eat. Even physical contact is hard, because for a year we don't even have a hug or a handshake. And I think a lot of people who live alone at the moment will be sensing that now. Some of us have been in lockdown since March. And so they'll go back to the office and there'll be people there who want that human interaction and want the hug, want to give you a cuddle. And there's just going to be a whole range of emotions. And I think particularly for leaders at the moment, that's the most important message, is just to understand that spectrum, that there'll be people who just can't wait to get back to some sort of normal and routine and they're hanging out. There'll be others really anxious about it and really sort of butterflies in the tummy about it. And then there'll be a whole swag of us in the middle. And I think just having that empathy and validating that you might feel this way, but this person might feel that way, and that's okay. It's perfectly okay to have that range of reactions, because that was the one thing I was totally unprepared for. I really thought I'd slide right back in. It took me, at a guess, about 6 months to get back into what I felt was my normal routine and normal headspace. But yeah, I thought I'd just slip straight back in, and for me it was a lot more difficult than what I anticipated, and I expect there'll be a few people feeling that way right now too.
That was leadership expert and author Rachael Robertson. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.